The once promising transition to electric vehicles is facing significant hurdles that threaten to derail its progress. Multiple factors ranging from consumer preferences to economic challenges have converged to cast doubt on the widespread adoption of EVs in the near future. We present 6 compelling reasons that suggest the EV market's growth may be stalled, signaling the potential beginning of its decline. Number 6. Consumer reluctance. Electric vehicles aren't considered essential by consumers. It is not surprising that the majority of drivers do not intend to purchase an electric vehicle in the near future, given the high cost, short range, and other drawbacks. I suppose that's why a lot of governments are passing these new regulations to increase sales. But these won't amount to much if things don't progress organically. The issue lies in the perception that prospective buyers have on EVs. Only 8% of British respondents to one survey said they were very likely to purchase an electric car to use as their primary mode of transportation during the next 5 years. The fact that 30% of them are thinking about getting another electric car is likely much more telling. Electric vehicles are not often the main mode of transportation in most households. A second or even third car in the family is the norm. It's reasonable to assume that affluent, eco-conscious families make up the bulk of EV buyers, given that these vehicles have found a certain market niche. Unfortunately, the majority of these people have already purchased electric vehicles, and the market is experiencing a shortage of their purchasing power. In other words, the early adopters phase is past, and EVs still haven't advanced enough to become the obvious choice for the middle class. They still can't fulfill the expectations of an average buyer in terms of autonomy, price, and general ease. Moreover, they're not even affordable to run anymore, which leads us to the second reason why the EV market is done. Number 5. Stagnating growth. If you look at what was happening in the last couple of years, it definitely seems like EVs could take over the market. The increase was so rapid that governments throughout the world devised fast-paced EV programs that would make EVs a dominating force on the market in a record short period. But soon enough, it became evident that these projections were erroneous. It was a transitory trend, and soon enough, EV sales lost impetus. So we're not experiencing spectacular year-over-year growth rates anymore, which were often above 90%. Instead, the EV market started slowing down in the last year, and now has come to the point that we're not talking about increasing anymore. It's not that the growth rate is lower, the market is stalling, while some sections of the world even show signs of regression. China is the world's most dominating EV force with the largest output and relatively good infrastructure. However, it is currently experiencing a substantial dearth of demand, putting most manufacturers at just half of their production capacity. Even Tesla dropped down by a third in the prior quarter. Things are no different for the US, where the EPA just came up with a revised proposal, and there's no word about making 2/3 of new cars all electric by 2032 anymore. More EV sales in the first quarter were 15% lower compared to the previous one, and for the first time in years, the market share is going down. The UK authorities came up with a zero-emission vehicle mandate, which obliges automakers to ensure that 22% of sales are EVs, and if they don't fulfill this demand, the fine is £155,000 per every vehicle they fall short. And that's just the beginning, as the percentages are likely to steadily rise every year and hit 80% by 2030. Number 4. China's oversaturation dilemma. China's market oversaturation. It's no secret that China has by far the largest EV manufacturer in the world and the most developed EV infrastructure. Currently, there are approximately 90 registered EV manufacturers in the world's second largest population. While some of them have accomplished some fantastic things, they all face the same problem: market restrictions. Namely, despite the size, the Chinese market has its limits, and now that's roughly 9 million EVs annually. That's an excellent number when compared to other marketplaces throughout the world. The only difficulty is that this is merely half the population capacities of all those Chinese EV companies. They need new markets to sell EVs. Otherwise, with the ongoing pricing battle in China, they will go out of business relatively soon. In other words, China is keen to grow to Western markets, and that's not going as planned. Logically, Western countries don't have to harm their own automotive sector, so we're currently watching all kinds of regulatory initiatives that are aimed to prevent Chinese EVs from overflowing Western markets. For example, Biden's administration has just come up with a 100% tax on Chinese EVs in Europe. Things are a bit more complicated because it's a two-way street. The European car sector heavily depends on the Chinese market. For example, 1/3 of all BMWs are sold in China, which is also the most important market for Volkswagen. In such circumstances, the European Union is forced to exercise all kinds of legal gymnastics merely to avert possible retaliation actions from the Chinese side. Number 3. The true cost of EV ownership. EVs are not cheap to run. Automakers, government officials, specialists, all of them have been promising all kinds of benefits from a conversion to electric vehicles. One of the things that people like to bring out is the operational costs. We've been told that fossil fuels are not just ecologically harmful, but also expensive, with electricity transportation becoming considerably cheaper, they added. In reality, things are a bit different because running an EV is considerably more expensive than running an internal combustion automobile for many owners. This is because not only are EVs more expensive to buy, but many owners have no other alternative but to charge their cars at public stations. And there, things may be very expensive. Just take a look at what's happening in the UK at the moment. Only in the previous year, the cost of power increase raised 10% on fast chargers, meaning EVs now cost 22 cents per mile. In the case of the internal combustion cars, that's roughly 17 pence. And the price gap in favor of fossil fuels is there despite the much higher taxes. When you buy petrol in the UK, half of the price is taxed. While on the other hand, the tax on electricity is 20% on fast chargers and 5% for those who charge at home. But even that won't last long. Since EVs prevail one day, taxes will go up because the UK government certainly won't give up on £2 billion of money from fuel tariffs. Of course, it's easy to deduce that the same difficulties plague drivers and authorities in other countries as well. Number 2. Legacy automakers' strategic shift. Legacy automakers are scaling back. The major difficulty with EVs is that they're not profitable. It is claimed that except for Tesla, there's no firm in the world that earns a profit on EVs and has a sustainable business plan. Legacy manufacturers have been vulnerable, in particular, since they never even went close to breaking the EV economy. Instead, all these automakers have been losing significant amounts of money. Just remember that Ford officials revealed that they've lost nearly $36,000 on every F-150 Lightning they sold in 2023. Now that it's becoming evident that fast electrification is not going to happen, and with the protection they're getting from the governments, legacy automakers finally got the opportunity to take a big breath. Some of them got the opportunity to lick their wounds from unsuccessful EV ventures, and now they're all scaling back. Ford and GM are deferring their EV investments and now want to put more focus on hybrids and IC cars to create some profit and recover from big EV losses. The same thing is true with automakers from Europe, where we could see businesses like Fiat prolonging IC phase-out to their popular vehicles beyond 2030. Even high-end luxury car manufacturers are forced on delays, so don't be surprised when you learn that Aston Martin has delayed its first EV for 2027, while Bentley has also postponed its all-electric plans. Number 1. Environmental concerns resurface. Where is the electricity coming from? Finally, let's not forget the reality that people are slowly getting aware that EVs are not going to do much for our world. They absolutely won't save it, because all that tale about ecologically benign character of EVs is basically a sham. There's no word about zero emissions in the globe when the production of electric automobiles leaves a substantially bigger carbon footprint compared to IC cars. Their production is anything from green, and as you may imagine, it's largely because of the batteries which require rare earth elements like lithium, which require the kind of mining that's catastrophic for nearby areas and the environment in general. With that in mind, EVs need to be driven for hundreds and thousands of kilometers before they can be said to have emitted less carbon than IC automobiles. But there's a key requirement, namely, that would be the case if all the electricity for the battery would originate from green sources of energy. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Most of the globe is still primarily dependent on fossil. And that will be all for now. Thanks for watching and see you next time.